listening to Lady Portia, and I'm going to read from my new story, For Her Pleasure, now available on Amazon. This is an edited version of the first chapter. As always, my sweet patrons on Patreon get exclusive access to my words, writing, and voice. Patreon.com/ServeLadyPortia. Enjoy listening. Warm sunlight flooded the quirky hotel restaurant, highlighting natural copper strands in Vicky's hair. With her chin propped in her hand, she admired the peaceful view overlooking the lake. Sliding quietly into the booth across the table with 2 menus, Alex waited for her to speak. She knew he didn't want to distract her daydreaming. "I love it here," she murmured, shooting him an easy smile. Vicki adored this feeling of excitement, adventure, and unlimited possibilities. Her finger traced the menu's gold-embossed leather. "You've always had great taste." Alex shot her a grin. "Anything for you." It was true. Alex would do anything to please his queen, his goddess. Vicky's pleasure was always paramount. Making her happy in turn made him happy. A delightful cycle of mutual pleasure. Today was no different. Alex wore a sharp white shirt, unbuttoned at the throat, paired with a grin and his curl of dark blonde hair. Vicki shivered with delight. A well-dressed man always pushed her buttons. Sharp and clean-shaven, Alex always towered over her. The top of her head barely skimmed his shoulder. Her loyal Viking. A warrior to everyone else, and yet he was her own personal good boy. Her sweetheart to do with as she pleased, and she pleased a lot. Slipping off her heels, Vicki cracked the leather spine and gave a cursory glance at the menu. Her bare toes swiped his ankle. Alex flinched, his gaze shot to Vicki. "Something wrong?" Vicki asked with mock innocence. Alex licked his lips and gave a slow shake of his head as she flipped through the menu. "Good." Lips pressed together in a small smile. Another swipe of her bare toes. Alex's eyes flared with dark emotion before dropping his gaze. A faint blush heated his cheeks. Melting her Viking into an eager puddle of obedience always relaxed her. Wielding her power as a benevolent and strict ruler when required. Testing his restraint was like slipping into a jacuzzi with fine wine and dark chocolate on her tongue. "Read me the appetizers." Vicki arched a brow and leaned back into the plush booth. Under the table, she started slow strokes of her delicate toes along his leg. Piercing blue eyes locked with hers. Alex gave a dry swallow and continued reading. "Wild mushroom soup with croutons." her toes arched from behind his knee down to his ankle, catching and slipping the hem up with agonizing care. Her soft toes lingered and caressed his calf, trailing higher along his leg. Every sensual brush electrified his bare skin. Vegetable dumplings. Vicki pulled her foot back and Alex mourned the loss of her touch. Instead, she braced her feet on his knees and forced them wide. As her toes edged higher and higher, Vicki played with her hair and twirled a curl around her finger. Perfect, she sighed, her eyes shining with glee. She propped a delicate foot on the plush booth between his thighs. Continue. Organic smoked salmon, he choked out, stumbling over the words. Biting his lip, Alex failed to stifle a groan. He was reduced to a pulsing, insistent need. With a white-knuckle grip on the menu, his heartbeat thundered in his ears. Eager for her touch, blood surged through him. "Did I tell you to stop?" she whispered. Alex felt naked, exposed, vulnerable. Vicki kept him off balance and in a constant state of agonizing bliss. He loved every moment. Struggling to gather his wits and focus, he closed his eyes and took a few deep breaths to steady himself. "Ready to order?" the waiter asked, jolting Alex's concentration. Vicki nodded. "I'll have beetroot tartlet with goat's cheese. The gentleman will have the chicken Caesar salad with dressing on the side. 2 sparkling water, please." The waiter's lips twitched and cheeks reddened as he scribbled. He slid a glance at Alex, sizing him up. "Right away," he drawled, a glint in his eyes. "Anything else I can get for you?" "That's all for the moment. I'm sure I'll think of something," Vicki purred. Glancing at his lapel, she pinned him with a radiant smile. "Thank you, Matt." The waiter hesitated for a beat too long, as if he wanted to say something more. He blinked and left their table. A little smirk of admiration teased her lips. Vicki's eyes glittered with mirth. She slipped her foot off the booth, giving Alex a little reprieve. "I love you ordering for me." Mouth dry, Alex licked his lips and lifted an eyebrow. Her eyes tracked the movement. "I know," Vicki whispered, reaching her arm across the table. Her fingers caressed the fine hair on the back of his hand. "It's one of my favorite things." "You already knew what I wanted to order." "Of course." Elbow resting on the table, Vicki perched her chin on her hand. "I wanted you to read to me." Grasping her wrist, Alex leaned down and pressed a gentle kiss to her palm. His hot tongue flicked out, tracing the sensitive lines and dips. Vicki bit back a sigh. Even though Alex was her good boy most of the time, he had mischievous flashes. Earning her attention was a privilege. She leaned closer to him. "You're being a tease." "It's a familiar feeling," he growled. "A small taste of what you do to me." "Says the biggest tease that ever lived," she shot back. Her throaty laugh spiked him with pleasure. "Maybe," he grinned with a wink. "Maybe not." Her gaze drifted from the waiter back to the calm lake. The waiter returned with a flourish. "Let me know if you need anything." With a wink and a jerky nod, he retreated and tended to another table. Arching a mischievous brow, Vicki speared a sliver of chicken from Alex's salad, twirling the meat on her fork. She popped the delectable bite into her mouth. "Delicious," she murmured with pleasure. Vicki sliced into her tartlet with care, admiring the goat's cheese melt and ooze. Relaxed and palms flat on the table, Alex didn't touch his cutlery or water. No expectation, no demands, only a singular, patient acceptance. Pilfering spinach leaves from his plate, Vicki tilted her head and gave him a slight nod. Permission. Alex unfolded the linen napkin with a flourish. He ate with exquisite care, cutting everything into tidy, methodical bites. This weekend was going to be filled with so much pleasure. Vicki licked her lips in anticipation. She was going to have her way with Alex, every way she wanted. All for her pleasure. Now available on Amazon.